have you been surprised, let down, encouraged by any of the research that has just kind of reaffirmed things that you have beliefs on?
Yeah, the Roman Collegia, surprising. There's a lot of things there that
that's a recent episode.
yeah,
By the time of
yeah,
this recording, that's a recent episode. I remember hearing you talk about them. This is the first
yes,
time I heard you anybody mention that before, which was interesting. Yes.
yeah, the Roman Collegia of Artificers, and not because I think that like there's a direct link. There's just so many points. They had burial societies, they had fraternity, they had some kind of ceremony. They wore gloves. They had a master of a lodge. They had the black and white checkered floor. I think a lodge, I don't know if it was a lodge or not, but in Pompeii, when they began to dig it up, they found a working lodge where these Roman collegia met. They had the skull and bones. They had the the perpendicular, the square and they not the square and compass, but they had a square. So the tools of the craft that we would recognize today, but it was found out there. Now, just like I mentioned in the podcast, does this mean that we have some kind of affinity, some kind of connection? Maybe, maybe not, because I think the jury is still out on that. It's just that what we get infatuated with, coming from the authentic school of Freemasonry, is that we want that documented proof. Here it is. Look at, there's all their signatures. Here's the Tyler. He was checking dues cards because they were going to have a vote. I think, whatever, what we're expecting. But if there were a secret society, because the Roman Collegia a lot of times acted like gangsters, they gathered together because they understood that there's power in numbers and protection. So even the emperors and them were beginning to like pay attention, like, hey, we got to know what they're doing. We got to take advantage of this in a good way. Otherwise, they're going to begin to wreak havoc on our program here. So the Roman Collegia, yeah, hey, that one surprised me, quite a bit. And I'm partial to Rome and ancient Rome and all that. So
yeah,
that was good.
It's the gold standard endorsement that I'm about to give here. So make sure that you're buckled into your seat, because if there is a master who has got some opening spots on his trestle board this year, and seriously, you're like, I am not getting up to read a short talk bulletin. I do not want to do a walkabout through the lodge or a lesson on Masonic etiquette. Dude, I strongly encourage you to go to either Apple Podcasts or Spotify, find the Masonic Muscle podcast, go through the Origin Wars and find one of these episodes and play them. Brother Cesar does a fantastic job. They're not super long. They're about 30 minutes long, if that long. He doesn't have any ads in his podcast, which I love about you. I'm sure my listeners are going to love that about you. We have them in ours, unfortunately. And they're condensed, and you don't have to listen to every single one in order. You can pick up at any time. You can listen at any time. And this is the one thing I did want to say to you, just, as a compliment, but also it's a fact that you leave the audience free to make their own decision. You do not steer us in one way or the other. You lay it out there. You're very clear about saying, well, this is the myth, or this is the fact, or this is what happened, this is what took place. And that's what I loved about it's like unbiased history. And I really appreciated that as a listener.
Thank you. And I think that's part of the tradition of the trivium, with the Socratic style conversations, where you start out with a question or a query or whatever it's going to be, and you don't know where it's going to end up. And if you're going to posit any kind of a claim, well, where's your proof? And so that's where it's coming from. I'm trying to, give honor, and respect to that process, which is, again, brothers, baked into our very ritual 7 liberal arts and sciences, the first being grammar, logic, and rhetoric, the trivium. So that's why I want to do it that way. It has to be unbiased, balanced way. And all of us, if we got all 12 and you got 100 brothers here, each one of them is going to pick one of those 12. They're going to want one of those 12 to be, that's where we came from. The esoteric minded, he wants the Rosicrucian. We came from the Rosicrucians. The operative, I'm operative, so I wanted to come from. So you have to lay it all out on the battlefield first, and then let's see what happens after that.
Yeah.